Out of all the ways that functional freeze can show up, this is probably the most common and the most misunderstood because when people think freeze, they imagine shutdown, numbness, doing nothing. But sometimes freeze looks like doing everything, fixing, helping, performing, achieving, while quietly disconnecting from yourself. This is the overfunctioning fixer, and no one ever told you that this might actually be a freeze response. Instead, you've probably been praised and heard things like, you're so responsible, you always get it done, you're the strong one. But underneath that is a nervous system that is frozen in hypervigilance, emotionally disconnected from self, running on empty, and terrified of what might surface if you stop doing and start feeling. It's trauma masquerading as capability. And that's why it's so insidious and so important that we name it. So let's dive into this. So I'm Andrea Ashley, and I'm the host of the podcast Adult Child. And this is part 2 of my series, The Many Faces of Functional Freeze. So in part 1, we explored my breed of functional freeze, which is the stuck and shame-filled overthinker, the version of freeze that feels like procrastination, spiraling thoughts, and endless shame cycles. If you haven't watched that yet, definitely go check that out. But today we're flipping the script, okay? Because freeze doesn't always look like shutting down. Sometimes it looks like showing up too much, showing up too much. So let's talk about the over-functioning fixer, the one who keeps it all together, who does it all, who holds it all, while quietly falling apart on the inside. So let's paint the picture of what this actually looks like, folks, okay? This person is not laying on the couch, zoning out. They're getting it done. They're the helper, the organizer, the reliable one. They're the one that holds the family, the office, the relationship, or the friend group together. But here's the truth that lies beneath the hustle, okay? You feel chronically responsible for everything and everyone. Rest doesn't feel like rest, it feels like guilt. You're hyper dependent. Asking for help feels unsafe, maybe even shameful. You use productivity, control, and caretaking as a way to calm your nervous system. You are high functioning, but emotionally checked out, and your body is tight, clenching, and buzzing. It's like it never fully powers down. And it's not just the behavior, it's also what's going on in your mind, the thoughts. You think, if I don't do it, everything will fall apart. I only matter if I'm useful. It's not safe to have needs, and I'm not allowed to stop. These aren't just limiting beliefs, folks. They're survival strategies. They are internalized from years of being the responsible one, the fix-it person, the adult in the house full of emotionally immature people. Let's dive into that further, okay? Let's talk about the origins of this, because this flavor of freeze doesn't just come out of nowhere. It is shaped early, often in a childhood where we had to earn our place by being the good one. For many over-functioning fixers, the story starts with roles like the hero child or the parentified child. Maybe you were the one who had it all together. Maybe you were praised for being mature or helpful or quiet. Maybe the adults around you didn't have the capacity to meet their own needs, let alone yours. So you became their emotional support person without even realizing it. And along the way, you learned love is conditional. If you perform, you're accepted. If you help, you're needed. But if you rest, if you ask for something, if you fall apart, you're too much. And so now, as an adult, your nervous system equates stillness with rejection. Rest feels risky. Slowing down feels dangerous. You don't feel safe unless you're being useful, productive, or managing somebody else's mess. I'm sure nobody can relate to that. And so it's easy to assume that this is just your personality, but it's not. It's not. It is a deeply ingrained survival response. And the most painful part, you're still running from the same fear that shaped you back then. That if you stop doing, you'll stop being loved. So you're not thriving, okay? You're surviving through overfunctioning. And the freeze, it's just wearing a very convincing mask of productivity. And so this is where things get really tricky with this phase of functional freeze, because on the surface, you might look like you are just doing fine. You're getting things done. You're helping everyone. You're holding it all together. But underneath the busyness, they're shut down. You have a numbness to your own needs. You are hyper attuned to everyone else's emotions, but let's ask you how you feel, and you have no answer. You have no clue. You don't notice you're hungry until you're shaking. You don't notice that you're angry until you explode or you're crying in the shower. This is emotional shutdown in disguise. Your nervous system learned long ago tuning into yourself is not safe. You use productivity as distraction. You can't sit still. There's always something to do, always someone to help, a list to check off. And the moment that you rest, guilt, panic, discomfort, rest triggers shame for you. So you keep moving because slowing down would mean feeling, and that feels terrifying. You are high functioning on the outside, but collapsing on the inside, and you lose yourself in helping. You've become the fixer, and this is your role. This is your identity. But when you are constantly solving everyone else's problems, it is a way to avoid your own. And so you might feel important, needed, but the reality is that you are completely untethered from you. And so let's now talk about the real cost of this, the emotional toll of living in this overfunctioning fixer freeze. You feel alone, even when you are surrounded by people. You feel resentful, but you shame yourself for it. You want to rest. You want someone else to step up. But the moment that you think that, guilt rushes in. You're never truly rested. Even when your body is still, your mind is still spinning. Even when you sleep, you wake up tired. And you've lost touch with who you are outside of being useful. The fixer, the doer, the achiever. But who the hell are you when you're not performing? And so let me just say this clearly in case no one has ever said this to you. You're not broken for needing rest. You're not bad for having needs. You don't have to earn your worth by doing. And so if all of this hits you hard, okay, please know that you are not alone. As I said, this is like probably the most common phase of functional freeze. And I want you to know that you are not stuck here forever. But the caveat here is that this sort of freeze does not just unthaw because you want it to. It is not going to respond to logic or to productivity hacks because it's not about discipline or mindset. It's about your nervous system. And so that is why healing starts in our body. Somatic healing, like breathwork, grounding, body-based therapies that are going to help rewire the survival patterns that live below your awareness. It teaches your system that rest can be safe, that you're allowed to slow down, that you're not going to be abandoned if you stop performing for everyone else. And with that, let me just say though, that healing doesn't mean that you stop being capable, helpful, or strong. What it means is that you no longer feel like your worth depends upon it. And so if you saw yourself in this video, which I'm sure many of you did, if this over-functioning fixer sounds like you're not failing, you're not broken, you're frozen in motion, and healing is absolutely possible. And so this has been part 2 of my series of the many faces of functional freeze. And next up, our final face, the detached and disconnected floater. For those who feel like they are just drifting through life without fully being in it. So thanks for being here, and please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and I will see you for the next one.